Hello, thought I'd share a devotional with you today. Sure enough, I'm up here in the church cemetery. It's a pretty neat place up here. It's pretty fitting as I'm again in Why Revival Tarries by Leonard Ravenhill. And in this chapter 5, I'm just going to read a few pages to you. But he's focusing on Ezekiel, and when the Lord asks Ezekiel about the bones and about prophesying about the bones, the dry bones. And Ravenhill goes, he says, "Does history, sacred or profane, offer a more ridiculous picture than this? Here is hopelessness incarnate. Who ever had such a dumb audience? Preachers deal with possibilities, prophets with impossibilities. Isaiah had seen this nation full of wounds and putrefying sores, but diseases had galloped on to death to disintegration, and now these disjointed bones spell out despair. Written over the whole situation in large capitals is impossibility." Now, obviously, no faith is required to do the possible. Actually, only a morsel of this atom-powered stuff is needed to do the impossible, for a piece as large as a mustard seed will do more than we have ever dreamed of. Again and again, God asks men to do not what they can, but what they can't, to prove that no sleight of hand does it, but that they link their impotence to His omnipotence. The word impossible is dropped from their vocabularies. Prophets are lone men. They walk alone, pray alone, and God makes them alone. For them, there is no mold. Their patent rights are with God, for the principle of divine selection is past finding out. But let no man despair. Let none of us say, however we may have been or have not been used, that we are too old. Moses was 80 when he took command of an enslaved and broken people. After George Mueller was 70, he went around the world several times, and without the aid of radio, preached to millions of people. As for Ezekiel, he called no committee and sent out no prayer letter. He solicited no funds and loathed publicity, but this situation was a matter of life and death. So is evangelism today. Therefore, let every preacher beware lest his theological juggling act send his hearer home saying, "He is a clever fellow," and yet leave him in complete spiritual darkness. To this mountain of bones, then, Ezekiel was asked to say, "Be thou removed." So he said, and so it was. Here was a curse. Had he a cure? Here was death. Could he bring life? This was no pretty declaration of doctrine. Dear believers, listen. The world is not waiting for a new definition of the gospel, but for a new demonstration of the power of the gospel. In these days of acute political helplessness, moral lawlessness, and spiritual helplessness, where are the men, not of doctrine, but of faith? No faith is required to curse the darkness or give staggering statistical evidence that the dikes are down and a tidal wave of hellish impurity has submerged this generation. Doctrine? We have enough and to spare, while a sick, sad, sin-sodden, sex-soaked world perishes with hunger. At this grim hour, the world sleeps in darkness, and the church sleeps in the light. So Christ is wounded in the house of his friends. The limping church militant is derisively called the church impotent. Yearly, we use mountains of paper and rivers of ink, reprinting dead men's brains, while the living Holy Ghost is seeking for men to trample underfoot their own learning, deflate their inflated ego, and confess that with all their seeing, they are blind. Such men, at the price of brokenness and strong crying and tears, seek that they may be anointed with divine eye salve, bought at a price of honest acknowledgement of poverty of soul. Years ago, a minister put this sign outside of his church: Quote, "This church will have either a revival or a funeral," end quote. With such despair, God is well pleased, though hell is despondent. Madness, you say? Exactly. A sober church never does any good. At this hour, we need men drunk with the Holy Ghost. Has God canceled himself? Were Wesley, Whitfield, Finney, Hudson Taylor special editions of ministers? Never. If I read the book of Acts aright, they were just the norm. The atom bomb seems to have disturbed everything except the church. By overstating the sovereignty of God and blundering on in an atmosphere of stagnant dispensationalism, we safeguard our spiritual bankruptcy. All the while, hell fills. All the while, hell fills. With communism in the world, modernism in the churches, and moderatism crippling the fundamentalist groups, will the Lord look in vain for a man to stand in the gap as Ezekiel did? My preacher brethren, these days we are more fond of traveling than travailing, hence no births. God send us, and that right early, a prophet out of step with a church that is out of joint. God send us, and that right early, a prophet out of step with a church which is out of joint. Boy, powerful words, especially this. The world is not waiting for a new definition of the gospel, but for a new demonstration of the power of the gospel. Have we lost sight of the power of the gospel of Jesus Christ? Have we lost this reality that salvation is a miracle and God is still doing miracles today? He is still saving people? Have we lost sight that all of our friends who do not know Christ, all of those who are lost, are one prayer away from knowing Christ? Do we have faith in believing that when we share the gospel of Jesus Christ, there truly is an opportunity and chance that they will say yes, and the miracle will happen where they will be saved? They will be revived. Those dead bones will have life in them. Oh, my friends, let's not forget the power of the gospel of Jesus Christ. God bless you.